I have a question for you, sir.
Go right ahead, partner.
James, I'm the silly one.
No, but yeah, I know, but like, I want to be silly too. I was in the circus, man. I've got skills.
Okay, fine, but just be less silly than me. The audience wants me to be, goofy and weird, but you're the audience surrogate. Without a relatable figure in the skits, it's just chaos.
All right, but like, that makes sense. But what if like I'm a bit sillier than usual and you're a bit more normal than usual? We'll like balance out.
Okay, that could work.
Yeah.
Let's try it again.
All right, sure thing.
My friend, I have a question for you.
Well, I'll answer it for you if you can shoot a grain of wheat rice right through this here pickle jar.
I ain't shooting nothing through there till you respect me and my cattle.
My cattle ain't nearly as precious to me as my Colt Model 1873 single-action Army revolver.
Well, that's the gun I used to kill your wife.
No, well, I don't have a wife. I'm like a lone gunslinger.
Aha! No commitment to the bit. I win. I'm the best at being silly.
That's not very silly of you, Walt.
I'm the best in town at shooting cow, man. Boys. Not shooting boys. I didn't say that.
I think that was the most unhinged we've ever been in a skit.
It's right up there.
The waveform on the
Yeah.
Audacity program was
Sorry,
like...
headphone users.
Yeah, if anyone was like going out the door on their morning walk and was like, you know what I fancy listening to?
Some nice, relaxing James and Walt.
Yeah.
Yeah, you came to the wrong place.
You're in the wrong part of town, partner.
Welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. No, welcome to the Get Commanded podcast. It's the GCP brought to you by POG, Palms Off Gaming, sponsor of this podcast. The only place where chocolate is ethically made. I'm your host, Walt.
Yep, we do it ourselves like Willy Wonka.
He was not making it ethically.
I was about to say, he had the actual slaves.
Yep.
Hello, Commander players. I woke up like this. It's James.
Hey, he did wake up like this.
I
woke
straight up did. I actually
not very long ago.
I currently have a beanie on because I couldn't be bothered doing my hair this morning.
Yep, and I don't ever do my hair, so... look, before we get to the transmission...
Welcome to the morning drive to work show with Walt and James.
Yeah, well, like from
the drive time radio.
Yeah, from Coraline, where like the father like stooped over the computer,
That's the vibe this morning.
Before we get to the transmission, Patreon.
Yeah, we've not spoken about Patreon in a while.
No.
Well, we do it at the end of every episode.
We do, but yeah, twitch.tv/getcommandedpodcast. It's the absolute best way to support the content that we make.
You just said twitch.tv/getcommandedpodcast.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay. It's twitch.tv/getcommanded. Patreon.com/getcommandedpodcast.
That's the Patreon.
Yeah.
Go
all
watch
the
us
other
live on
ones get
Twitch as
commanded.
well.
It's true. Well, but I wanted to mention the Twitch because one of the things that we noticed in our poll, this might come up again later, the giveaway poll we did recently was a lot of you wanted to see deck makeovers on Twitch, and we actually did one of these already for one of our patrons. So if you're someone who has a deck and you want to improve it and get it slightly better than it is at the moment,
and give us something to do on Twitch.
Yeah, and also, by the way, we had the person whose deck we were making over in the Twitch chat, so we could get their thoughts live
like
on our decisions. Like, hey, how do you feel about this card? How do you feel about us cutting this?
And some of them were like, he was like, nope, I hate it, don't do it. And we were like, okay, perfect. Now we just know exactly what to steer away from. So Wizard Down Under, who's the Patreon that got the deck, he is now like really hyped to play this deck in paper. I think he's started ordering the cards and collecting them.
I think he's going to proxy it up. I think he's proxying up ASAP.
Really cool.
Very, very cool. So yeah, if you are interested in having a deck of yours made over, and especially if you want to do it live on Twitch, definitely support us in Patreon. The top 2 tiers of our Patreon, I think, have that as an option.
It's the best way to support the show. We appreciate it. And yeah, you get awesome benefits. And if you go to the Space Commander tier, you can recommend an episode.
Yeah.
You get to play with Walt and I once a month, which is really exciting.
Spell Table, or in person if you're in Melbourne. Yeah. We're not going anywhere else, I'm sorry to say. But Spell Table.
Maybe if like on the rare occasion, if we're like going to a Command Fest in Sydney or something like that, we can line it up. But like, we're not doing it every month.
2 birds with one stone. Look, we do have an incoming transmission from the deep depths of the galaxy, from the Space Commanders. It's time to get commanded.
ponderings have been collated and require answers. Our cohort continues to learn the nature of the human power of empathy.
Talk really cryptic, but this is a Q&A episode.
We see what you mean, Space Commanders.
Get what they're putting out. But they could have just said, yo, Q&A time.
Look, they've got some shorthand here. They've talked about collating ponderings before, I think, in the last couple of Q&As. So we know what you mean, Space Commanders. I reckon the place they've collected these questions from was that giveaway poll.
Yeah, they did let us put that little box at the end of that poll saying if you've got any questions for us. And yeah, you guys came out in force. Thank you so much for replying to that poll that we put out.
Yeah, we got about 30 answers in the end, which was more than we expected, and lots were very high quality.
And it's a considerable poll too. It was, there was a lot of questions to answer.
Yeah.
So we got some good data on you guys as an audience. So thank you for filling out.
Yeah, and we'll definitely be taking your feedback as we look at future content that we make. So we really appreciate that. But yeah, the Space Commanders have gone through all those questions you submitted at the end.
Collated the ponderings.
They've collated the ponderings. As we said, and we've got 15 questions, I think, roughly, to answer. So let's just get straight into it, I reckon. Yeah. Also congrats, by the way, the giveaway that was associated with the poll. We have DM'd the person and they have replied, but it was Riccatoni.
Yeah, nice.
Congrats, Riccatoni.
You're going home with a collector booster from Karlov Manor. You're going home with a science precon from the Fallout Commander decks. You're going with the Allied Talisman Dan Fraser Secret Lair.
Yeah.
Allied or enemy talisman?
Allied
Talisman.
Yeah.
You're also taking home a Genesis deck box, inner sleeves, and a 4-pocket binder from Palms Off Gaming as well.
Thanks to Palms Off Gaming.
Come on down, Riccatoni. That'd be so
being
cool
in the circus.
He's
got the circus announcer voice down pat. Anyway, we should get into these questions. Our first question is a bit of a long one. Comes to us from Jack. Jack asks, my friends and I often play lengthy games, which we don't have an issue with.
Oh, interesting.
We feel differently to that. The lengthy games, we don't have an issue with that. But I feel like when board wipes and removal are used, we/one of us often gets frustrated and targets the person who played the removal/board wipe.
Oh, some spite plays going on.
Yeah. How can we lower the tension in the pod when removal is used?
Ooh.
I think maybe we might have answered a similar question to this before, but the thing that immediately comes to mind for me, I like to explain why the removal is being used.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm just going to generally say all good relationships, whether it's romantic, friendship, playgroup, it's all based on good communication.
Yeah, straight up. But I think that the really good thing that happens in this case when you open the floor to talking about removal is sometimes you will legitimately get swayed by someone. Someone will be like, okay, I see that you can see that my commander is a problem.
Yeah.
Have you considered that this person's about to untap with 16 mana and that their commander might have a more immediate threat to you than mine?
Or they just shooted and they've got a card that they specifically looked for in hand.
Or that person drew 30 cards last turn.
Refer to our threat episode, our threat assessment episode. That's a really good way to start having these kinds of conversations.
Definitely. But I think the really good thing that happens when you open the floor to talking about removal and do you think I should board wipe? Do you think I should remove this threat? Is that either someone will sway you, which will feel good for them. They'll be like, okay, you can see things from my point of view. Or they might lay out what they feel. Someone else might go like, oh, I feel like this is a bigger threat. And you might go, I'm going to go with what I initially thought and remove this one thing. At the very least, people feel like they were listened to. Because that's the thing that really sets people back, I think, when board wipes and removal get cast, is when it's like, okay, I wish you had told me what you were going to do before you cast that, because I feel like I could remove something for you. There's politics that's possible here.
Yeah, I think that there's I always imagine, those really corny family therapy sessions where they use things like, all right, every sentence you say has to start with, I hear you. But when you say that makes me feel it sounds so dumb. But when we play a social game, I'm genuinely, I reckon a good 30 to 40% of our game of Commander is the social aspect.
Yeah.
There is a lot that's card mechanics and building your deck and all this kind of stuff. Yeah. But a significant portion is how you interact with your opponents, whether it's politics or just even it extends outside the game, right? How you are just friends with these people.
Yeah.
If you're having a bit of a, Walt and I have lived together. So we've had some times where we've brought outside shit into the game of Commander.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to navigate. So you have to take the approach of when you're playing the game, you're not just playing a game of Commander, you're also hanging out with your friends. And their feelings do come into it. And I think that, I know it's a bit of a cop-out answer, but the best way to navigate this is just by talking about it.
Yeah, and the sooner the better, right?
Yeah.
Like, we do place a big emphasis on the pre-game conversation, which I'm not going back on that at all. We've also talked about Rule Infinity, which is our recommendation to have a chat after the game about how people felt about Rule Zero and how it was used and all that kind of stuff. But really, aside from those two, the absolute best time to talk with your players about how they feel about how things are going is when it happens.
Yeah, right then, right now.
Yeah, so like, even if you don't manage to have that conversation before a board wipe gets used, even just being like, sorry, man, I know this sets you back to the Stone Age. Like, just that might be enough for that person to be like, maybe they'll just like throw their hands in the air and go, whatever.
Okay, GG for me, I guess.
Yeah.
But like, even stuff like, something I'd recommend your playgroup doing is when the target is being declared, so say it's targeted removal, you can be like, all right, I'm going to snuff out your commander, Walt. And then you go, whoa, 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 whoa. Let's have a chat before you declare a target. I think in Commander, that's totally fine. Like, I was playing CDH last night, and we had targets redeclared on the stack. And that's, like, even CDH players, people that take the game as seriously as you can get it, allow for people to retarget things as long as nothing's changed in the game.
That's the main thing, right? Is that, like, if the time between when you're choosing targets and then everybody else responding, if you're still in that time, then doesn't matter. You can choose the targets again, and it's exactly as though you just cast the spell. And the first time you chose the targets that you ended up choosing. Like, nothing has changed. It's the same reason that in most tournaments they let you walk back a land.
Yeah, they let you untap lands. As long as the board state's not changed, you can even untap lands.
Yeah, you can take back your land drop though.
Yes.
Often. If you play a land and go, oh, sorry, I think I need to play a different land, almost all tournaments I think will let you just return that land to hand, play a different one.
On the very exception if there's landfall triggers and you've resolved those.
But that's because there's triggers. I guess that the territory we're navigating here is like, if nothing has changed since you made a decision, usually it's totally fine to walk it back.
And Jack, try that in your playgroup. See if people are fine running things back, just like for a target, just so communication can happen.
Just open up any conversation. Any conversation that you have will make it better. I don't think it's possible. Yeah,
that was a good first question.
Thanks, Jack.
All right, well, next one's coming to us from Adam, longtime fan of the podcast. Oh, this is a good one.
We've changed a word here.
Gonna change one of the words.
Space Commanders have censored this slightly.
Bonk, marry, kill. The bonk, marry, kill options are brilliant. Emrakul, Kozilek, Ulamog.
The three Eldrazi Titans of Zendikar.
This is definitely not the option. I was hoping for like Ralzarek, Nissa, like Sarah Ascendant.
I mean, the nature of Bonk, Marry, Kill is that you don't choose.
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
I guess this is what we get.
Look, I'm going with my bonk. I'll get that out of the way first.
Sure.
I'm going Ulamog. Mainly for his side profile art. That chin, though, that is a jawline, man. Like, you talk about, like, the Chad jawline. He's got that Chad chin.
You're all listening to this. You made the choice to listen to us do this.
If anything, Adam, it's your fault for asking the question.
Thanks, Adam. Who are you killing, James?
I'm gonna kill Kozilek. Mainly because I think his ability to do the counterspell thing is just obscene.
It's too annoying.
It's absolutely obscene.
Draws you up to 7 cards when he comes in.
Yeah.
It's silly.
And I guess I have to marry the mum. Marry mummy. Emrakul. Marry mummy Emrakul.
I respect that. I think I'm gonna go. I'll be like Sokka from The Last Airbender. I'm gonna bonk the moon.
Sure.
So that'll be Emrakul out of the way. I'm gonna marry Kozilek because he can counter all of the spells that try to kill me. Is my thinking.
Fair. Okay, so he's like your guardian.
Safe.
He's like your daddy guardian.
Kozilek can keep me safe, and I'm going to kill Ulamog for their crimes against our playgroup in 2020.
True. That was a period.
For the number of times that I saw in my top 20 cards that got exiled, my win cons go.
Or your answer for Ulamog.
Yeah, my board wipe. Your board wipes are all in the top 20, and it's like,
That attack trigger is just obscene.
It's absolutely crazy.
I'm kind of excited to see the new Emrakul, Ulamog, and Kozilek from Modern Horizons 3.
Are they printing them again?
Well, they're doing new ones. They've spoiled Emrakul already.
Oh, I think I saw that.
It's got Madness 6 colorless, so you can cast Emrakul. It's wild.
Silly.
It looks insane.
It's very much like a fairer version of the like gain control. Oh, like protection from instants. They've got like something similar where it's like
I think it's protection from colored spells. Maybe
it's got something a lot more fair than protection from instants, which is obscene, by the way.
That's so many things.
I know, it's crazy. Our next question comes to us from Matt. Matt says, if you had to build a deck that goes against how you usually play, which commander would you choose? I think that I would have to say like Veyran, Voice of Duality.
Oh, the Magecraft
doubles like prowessy kind of. Or doubles triggers of instants and sorceries being cast.
Yeah, if a permanent would be triggered by you casting an instant sorcery, it triggers an additional time.
Yes, but it also itself has Magecraft. It gets +1/+1, which means its own ability is going to get doubled every time.
Silly.
It's so silly. I just really don't like storming off. And especially when the turns go really long. There's a reason that my Spellslinger deck is a humans deck.
And it's also like a big spells deck.
Yeah, it's cast like 2 spells a turn. And it's just because every time I've tried to build a deck that like storms off, I built a Wart the Raid Mother deck that did this. I built a my Tygam deck that put all my spells into rebound, cast them all again in my upkeep.
Your Avernalist kind of does this, kind of.
It does a bit, but it's more. I would say that the long turns thing is more because of Cascade and Landfall, and not so much Storm. Like
just
I'm saying,
resolving
like,
triggers.
Just like Storm itself, you can't really build effectively as a win con without having extremely long turns. And I find the long turns stressful, and I know from experience that they're not fun for other people. So yes, if I was going to go
I've
against,
done them to you,
probably. But if I was going to go completely against what I would normally play, which is the opposite of this, then I would probably have to build Veyran and be Blue-Red Storm.
That's fair. I feel bad for how many times my Savine deck has taken like a 10-minute turn.
You are very good at speeding running through triggers. I compliment you on this all the time, but I'm telling you again, you are very, very good at playing through your triggers. We've played against many other Storm players.
I've done it on stream too.
You have.
Stressful.
You use the Infinite tokens to count your copies. You've got all your things laid out in a way that makes sense. Like, you do it better than I think anybody else I know.
I try really hard.
You do try really hard, and it's appreciated. But yes, in general, Storm decks take long turns.
All right. For me, I'm going to choose another card in your decks. I'm probably going to say like Reese the Redeemed is probably one that I would have to like, because like firstly it's way out of my colors, and it also just like says do like token things, but not like Murmuring Mystic token things.
No, it's not like whenever you do this, make a token, which is kind of your style.
Actively try and make tokens, you know?
Your deck is a token deck.
Yeah, I was actually on EDH Rec a while ago having a look at Selesnya token stuff because I want to challenge myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And I saw Shana Sisay's Legacy.
Oh, this is, funnily enough, the origin of my Reese deck way back.
Yeah, this
was Shana Sisay's Legacy.
Because it's a 2-mana star that's
it's
equal
power
to
and
the
type is equal number of creatures you control.
Yeah.
And it can't be the target of abilities your opponents control.
So you still can target it by spells, but it's a weird, slightly protected thing.
Slightly hexproof.
It can't be Dispeller's Capsule, or what's the...
Yeah. It can't be the black one.
Black one, what's that one called? Executioner's Capsule.
Is that right?
Yeah, like something that says make a lot of tokens and do the Overrunner thing.
Sure.
Because like I built my Savine deck, funnily enough, to be that. Like, I've got, like, Young Pyromancer, I've got Murmuring Mystic. But that's, like, the thing that I'm thinking about while I play is not how many tokens I have, it's how many spells I'm casting.
Yeah.
Whereas when you play a Reese the Redeemed deck, it's like, okay, I need to sequence my mana so I can get the most amount of tokens.
So I think the difference here is like talking about primary and secondary theme, where I feel like your Spellslinger deck is primary Spellslinger, secondary tokens.
Correct, yeah.
Whereas a Reese deck, I don't think you can build in any way that isn't primary tokens. Like, it's just the nature of what he does. I don't think you could do it.
Is there a universe where I can build a Spellslinger Reese the Redeemed deck?
The one thing I'll say that I actually think Reese would suit for you is that Reese is a mana outlet, which means you can leave up a lot of mana.
Yeah,
it's something I've realized about Reese is that it's actually a deck that's extremely good at leaving up mana for responses, because if nothing else happens, you just pay either 3 and make an elf, or pay 6 and double all your tokens.
Honestly, maybe there is a world where I can have like a really responsy green-white deck.
Maybe.
I
think Reese would be the way. So I think if you're going to go completely against how you usually play, I think it would have to be more like Shanna. Or
like do something even more like King Darien, the one that like gives all like he's a lord effect.
And then...
No, not King Darien. The green-white king from the one that gives all creatures +1/+1, and then you can sacrifice him to give tokens indestructible.
Oh, maybe that is King Darien. I think I'm thinking of someone else.
You're thinking of the mono-white one, whichever when you take damage, you make that many soldiers.
I think that's also Darien. Maybe there's a King Darien and a different Darien.
Maybe it's like the same character.
It could be. We don't know the story very well. Can you tell? But no, I know that. Yeah, that would be very much not what you're doing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's see if we can do that one day. I reckon it'd be interesting. Just to see you play Faerun would be interesting.
Definitely.
All right. Next question from Gianni. What is your favorite 3-color combo and why? Easy. It's Grixis, baby.
Yeah. James loves his Grixis. There are so many decks of yours that you have a couple of Grixis decks now.
Funnily enough, have disassembled. I disassembled your Laver.
Oh, that's gone
your
now.
Laver's actually gone. But
so you only have the one, but you have so many decks within Grixis colors.
Correct.
You've got multiple blue-black decks.
Multiple
you have multiple
red-blue
blue-red decks. You also have a red-black deck. This is where you love to play.
They're just my colors, and I'm actually thinking, I was texting about this to you the other night, I'm actually thinking about turning my 9th Doctor deck into a 9th Doctor and Clara deck and having her be black in the command zone.
Part of the reason was we saw the new Obeka get spoiled, which is the 2/5 with Menace that says when it deals combat damage to a player, you get that many additional upkeeps after this step.
It's so cool.
It's so cool.
It's so cool.
So
and it also synergizes with stuff like the Tavern Brawler that you can make her bigger and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
If she's your commander, you could make that
true.
Anyway, I think it's a really cool build, but Grixis is just, like I said before, green-white is out of my colors. These are my colors. So, I mean, the other thing is I really like the philosophy behind the colors. I've talked about this on the color philosophy episodes.
Yeah.
I really just like how they interact with each other. I think that they're so me of I walk into a room and I want to be the person that everyone is looking at and notices and thinks is really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's what Grixis is.
Right?
It wants to be the person that people think it's cool. It doesn't necessarily have to be, but it wants to be.
Yeah.
And it's about the drive to get there, and I really like it. And also, it just has all the stuff that I love doing in Commander. It's great at drawing cards.
Yeah.
It has the best interaction. I think it's the best color combination for speed, and I'm talking explosive plays, think going from 0 to 100.
Black and red are the colors of rituals. I think that should tell you a lot. I think black and red are arguably the fastest colors. I mean, it depends. 60 card Magic, weirdly, white becomes a really valid aggro deck, but most burn decks will contain either red or black.
Well, you think about it in CEDH, the Grixis decks are all turbo.
Absolutely.
They're all turbo decks.
Absolutely. They're the tutors, they're the rituals. That's all the things you need to go super fast.
It's also just got great alternate win conditions. Mill is viable in those colors.
Yeah.
Burn is viable in those colors.
Really good card drawing Grixis as well.
Yeah, amazing card draw. Black
and
blue.
3 colors for...
And red has impulse draw.
Yeah. You don't lose much in Grixis.
No. And who needs genuinely who needs green? Genuinely. Who needs green?
Me.
That's a segue, Walt.
Me. I would have to say Bant for me.
Yeah, I could see that. Your Catilda and Lear deck is your favorite deck.
It's right up there. I actually, funnily enough, I didn't mean to. I wanted to rebuild my Enchantress decks and I wanted to build a new Spellslinger deck, and I happened to land on Bant for both of them.
Yep.
And I had the best time in Bant. It's so flexible. There's so many different themes within the Bant colors. You can do spells with Catilda and Lear. You can do Enchantress with Estrid. You can do creatures with Helene. You can do walls with Arcades.
True.
There are so many goofy little slices of the pie in Bant. And you just get access to the real meat and potatoes of deck building. You get access to the best ramp in green. Card draw in green and blue is really, really good. White and green are the best removal colors, I would argue, in Commander, especially white. They're the best colors for creatures specifically. And most of the decks I build are really creature-based decks. So
I would actually love to do a comparison of our Mox fields of how many creatures are in our decks and how many instants and sorceries are in our decks.
Oh, my average creature count is so high, man.
My average instant count would be through the roof.
Some of my decks, I know for a fact, I've actually ordered all of my decks before by creature count. It used to be extra funny when I had my Boros polymorph list that had 5 creatures in it.
That'd be right.
Yeah. But funnily enough, my highest creature count is my Meren deck and my Arami deck, and it's because they're mill decks that reanimate. So you want to hit creatures off the top as often as you can. So both of them are around the 40 mark. I think Meren is like 45 or something stupid. Absolutely
that
obscene.
makes sense.
Like half the cards in the deck are creatures. No, I just love Bant, and I think it's the colors I want to be in. I will say, because we're talking about colors, that I think that I play more of the opposite end of the color pie than you do on average. Like I like Bant.
Oh, you explore the other colors more than me.
I think just on average, I think like you have very few white decks and very few green decks, relatively speaking. Like,
and also even
not
when
in any way saying it's a bad thing, because you play decks that you fucking love, and I think brew decks that you have a lot less of the time where you brew a deck and go, I hate this, than I do.
Well, we were talking about this with my 9th Doctor deck recently, about how it's like the first deck I've built and it's not one. Like,
and I was like, James, this is every deck I build. I build it and go like, okay, cool. Well, this is so fun and goofy. How do you ever win the game?
Look, I think it's fair to say you explore the other colors, because even when I play outside my colors, I usually, like, for example, my Zaxara deck has green in it, but it's not really a green deck. It's more about the big spells than about the big creatures.
I think a lot of people would build Zaxara with like base green, primary black, blue, and you're probably like primary blue, secondary black, tertiary green.
I just like doing the big like Mind Spring, draw a big like amount of cards and make a big creature.
Look, I think there's a lot of merit in like building a deck in a way that you really enjoy, rather than forcing yourself to do something different. Like build outside of your like usual play patterns with the commanders and with the colors that you choose. But if you like love instants or whatever, chuck instants in your deck. Like, don't force yourself to play a way that you don't like.
The game we're playing is about having fun. Have fun.
Yeah, and have fun with your deck building.
Thanks, Johnny. That was a good question.
That was.
I feel like we knew the answers, but if you didn't, I hope you enjoyed the answers. I knew you were going to be banned. I knew it.
I think we're expecting a transmission, by the way, now that we've finished the 5 colors of the philosophy series. I think we got a warning from the Space Commanders that there'd be more. So keep your eyes tuned for your eyes tuned.
Eyes tuned.
Keep your eyes tuned.
Keep your eyes tuned and your fingers peeled.
And oh, that's visceral.
Oh, that's really
I don't
gross.
like that. Okay,
do the next question.
Next question comes to us from Fuzzy, one of our patrons. Thanks, Fuzzy. Have you played 7 Point Highlander? If so, what are your thoughts and opinions? I haven't, but James has.
Yeah, I've played it twice. I played it once at Plenty of Games in Melbourne, and then once again in the Gold Coast, up on the coast.
We should explain what 7 Point Highlander is. It's also sometimes called Australian Highlander.
True.
Is this our one, the 100 card one, or is it 60?
Because
the Canadian Highlander is 100, I think.
I can't remember which one's which.
I think Australian Highlander is 60 cards, but it is Highlander, which is where we get Elder Dragon Highlander from, which means you can only have one copy.
Singleton.
Singleton format. You can only have one copy of each card, aside from lands, obviously, basic lands. And in 7 Point Highlander, you have 7 points that you can include powerful cards in your decks with. So, for instance, Sol Ring is 3 points.
I think it might be more than that. I think it's actually 4 or 5.
Yeah. And then like Demonic Tutor, I think, has points, and Mana Crypt has points.
There's like a rule, like there's a Commander Rules Committee. There's a Rules Committee that organize the points of cards, and they're very up to date on the meta. So those points change. So that's how the meta changes. The coolest thing about this is there are no bans. There are like
only points.
Only points. So for example, you can run Mox Jet. If you wanted to.
You can run Ancestral Recall.
You can run Black Lotus.
You can run Time Walk.
Time Twister.
Yeah. All the most busted... Literally, the Power 9. The Power 9 are legal in 7 Point Highlander.
It's insane. And like, this is my experience with it. It's like, when you sit down at a Highlander event, you feel like you're sitting down with Post Malone.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, oh my God, the money on this table is out of the world. But it's so powerful. Like, it's like when, like, I've played someone else's deck. I played an Abzan reanimatory thing at Plenty of Games once. But then when I went to the Gold Coast, I turned my CEDH Niv Mizzet deck into a 7 Point Highlander deck for that event.
Took some cards out, I'm guessing?
It was pretty hard. I had to cut it down to 60.
Right.
And then, so that must have been the 60 card version of it.
Oh, okay. I think Canadian Highlander must be the 100 card one. That's similar in rules, but otherwise it's 100 cards. Yeah, I think 7 point must be 60.
And then I had to buy some singles from the store and do a couple of switches.
Sure.
But I still managed. I got a win at that. At that tournament, so I was like pretty impressed with myself, considering Niv Mizzet is like not a card you would play in 7 point Highlander. The thing that I think about 7 point Highlander is it's as close as it gets to playing EDH in one-on-one.
Probably CDH, right?
CDH, yeah.
It's like if you love CDH and you want to play CDH in a 1v1 capacity, then maybe
7 point Highlander is the way to go. And I think there's a lot of crossover, especially in Australia. There seems to be a lot of players that play CDH that also play 7 point.
Makes sense.
But it's like the importance of interaction and sequencing your plays and threat assessment,
explosive turns,
like going from 0 to 100 real quick. But there's also just like some really wild combos. A lot of people run the Isochron Scepter
dramatic reversal
thing, but they also tuck things like Time Walk and stuff.
Oh my god!
So infinite turns. It's bizarre. It's really, really powerful. I also think that as a format compared to like Modern, Pioneer, that kind of stuff, there is so much more room for brewing.
Okay.
Like so much more. Like I never sat down against the same deck.
Right.
Like, like when you go to a standard event.
Yeah. There's the top 5 meta decks and you expect most of your games to be against those decks. And in Modern, you're like, okay, I'm going to be playing against Rakdos Scan.
Yeah. When you're playing standard, it's like Boros Convoke is everywhere now.
I'll play against some Delver. Like there are like top meta decks, and at most of the tournaments, you'll see most of those rise to the top, right?
Whereas this is like there are staple cards, but because you change your points, you get a very different view of your deck than... So you could be in the same colors as someone, but the deck is very different.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That does sound really cool.
I mean, it's just so, like the card pool's massive.
Yeah. I guess it is worth being really clear, if we're talking about CDH players in particular, that this is a competitive and sanctioned format, so it will not be proxy friendly.
Yes.
So that will be a big factor in whether you can play this format. In terms of going to a tournament, obviously you can always proxy up cards and play them against each other if you're playing a kitchen table.
Yeah.
But if you're going to go to a tournament, you will need to own all of these cards, which will be cost prohibitive for a lot of us.
Like we got to see at CanCon like an actual tournament go down, and
massive
it was
tournament, the biggest tournament I think they've ever had.
It was
7 point Highlander. It was
260 players.
It was crazy. So for reference, there was like a whole magic room, and the commander was like one side.
We got like 8 tables.
Yeah, the commander tables shrunk down a lot because every other table in the room had Australian 7 point Highlander being played on it. Very, very cool.
But look, it's really fun. I think if you're a CDH person and you want to try a one-on-one format and you have the means, go for it. I think sometimes it does feel like a lot of 2 people playing solitaire, but from what I saw at CanCon, interaction seems to be going up with cards like Subtlety and Evoke, like the Fury, Solitude, that kind of stuff. I think the interaction's going up in the meta at the moment. But again, not an expert, just my experience with 2 times playing it. But it's good fun.
It sounds fun. Next question comes to us from Mini Potatoes. Mini Potatoes says, the question everyone wants to...
this is a hot one.
Everyone always asks this at some point. Do pineapples belong on pizza? Yes, obviously.
Yep.
Quit limiting your palate. I understand.
Straight up.
If you're making like traditional Italian style pizza, who's doing that, by the way? Looking at you, people who order a meat lovers pizza. That's not traditional Italian.
No.
If you're not going to be doing traditional Italian cuisine and you just want to experiment with flavors, pineapple is a very, very fun and interesting thing that it does to the flavor of pizza. Quit limiting people's palates.
I 100% agree. I'm a pineapple on pizza every day.
Yep.
Fruit goes on pizza because there's my family. We do like a homemade pizza night. We get like pita bread and we like just sauce that and just make our own homemade pizzas. Fig on pizza. Fig and prosciutto. I know you're vegan, but like fig with something really salty is just like this beautiful flavor. Fig on pizza, you should try it.
There's a reason that they put that salty and sweet in a lot of very, very like tasty cuisine is because they go together really, really well.
Also, anyone that says fruit doesn't go on pizza, tomato is a fruit. Sorry, I got very passionate about that. Don't tell me it doesn't go on pizza when literally the base of all pizzas is freaking fruit.
Yeah, I love my fruit juice pizza.
Yummy.
Margarita, I'm talking about, of course.
All right, next question.
Sure, let's do it.
That was an easy one. All right. The next one comes to us from Ben. Oh, good one. What do we think of the reserve list and specifically its effect on card prices and CEDH gameplay?
The reserve list is a stupid, terrible, awful, terrible, stupid thing.
Throw in a couple more adjectives. Go on.
It's dumb.
Yeah, nice. Good stuff.
Look, I think it's crazy that the only way to play competitive Commander, really, unless you're a gajillionaire, is to play with proxies.
Unless you're Post Malone.
Yeah. But I just think it's crazy that these are cards that are played in a bunch of different formats, not just Commander. Obviously, if you're playing Legacy, if you're playing Vintage, you have to have sets of dual lands. In order to just like keep up with the decks. I just think it's...
Thank heck that CDH encourages proxies.
Oh yeah, it's great that it does, because that's the only way that could in any way be a viable way to play Commander in a competitive setting. I just think the reserve list is ridiculous. You can go check out the Professor, Tolarian Community College, has a great video. It came out about a year and a half ago now.
Oh, yeah.
He talked about basically how he thinks that the legal precedent that Wizards think prevents them from printing stuff on the reserve list is probably bogus. And that they're basically doing it anyway. There's a reason that Wheel of Misfortune exists. Like, they want the cards to be printed. They just feel like they've been...
And they're game pieces. That's what the Professor says all the time. These are game pieces that people need to play with. I just think MTG finance as a whole is a bit silly.
Yeah.
And like the annoying thing is I have to engage in it. Like I have to engage in capitalism by having a job.
Yeah.
Like you can't avoid it. But the fact that it exists, like the reserve list exists to keep such a small percentage of the player base happy, which is effectively the people that think MTG finance is like a viable way to invest your money.
Yeah.
Which like, look, there are content creators out there and I'm not trying to snub people that put a lot of work and effort into buying cards and try and make money off cards. Like their whole businesses, like Josh and Pat's Bazaar.
Yeah.
Like a lot of what Pat does is keep track of all this stuff. And it's really interesting how the market works because of bans and new cards being released and spoiled and stuff. But I just don't want to engage in that when I'm playing my game.
No.
Do you know what I mean? Like I'm happy to buy and spend money on the game that I enjoy, but I don't want it to I don't want to think about it like I'm thinking about my stock portfolio.
No.
Do you know what I mean?
I think it's okay to like live in a world. Look, we live in a world that has money, and money is what you get for your job. So while we live in that world, yes, paying money for cards I think is fine. Obviously, in a perfect world, I think it would be great if everyone had access to every Magic card to play any format they like whenever they wanted to. I think it's a fucking cool idea, and I would love to live in that world, but it's not the world we live in.
Coming soon to a universe near you, Walton James Tropical Island Commune, where all Magic the Gathering cards are available for you.
Yeah, we will do do that.
That's a cult. I just described a cult.
Do you want to join? You've got no choice in the matter. Anyway, but in the meantime, yes, I think the very least we can do is to have it so that as many formats as possible are accessible to as many players as possible. I will say, I think that in general, Wizards have done a very good job with reprints in the last 2 years. The amount of times I've gone to brew a deck and been like, wow, Tireless Tracker is $1.
Yeah, they reprinted like Ravagers of War even.
Yeah, I went, what's the card? The 7-mana sorcery that destroys all creatures that aren't of a certain type? Kindred Dominance.
Oh, yeah.
That card's like $6. Yep. That was like, I remember when that was like $30 because it was printed in one precon. They're doing a good job of reprinting cards. It's just that the reserve list prevents them from printing a bunch of cards that absolutely need to be reprinted. So, yes, it's terrible. I think the effect it has on card prices, Ben, is terrible. But look, CDH gameplay is unaffected because everyone plays proxies anyway.
Yeah, and like Ben, I know you're a CDH player and you're a proxier. I think it's one of these things of like, we just have to kind of accept that it's a thing. Go back to the green philosophy episode. Take a little bit of stoicism. Accept the fact that it exists and just...
And you can't do anything about it.
Exist in the world that it lives in.
Yeah. We can hate it, but mostly we just need to move on and play with the cards that do get reprinted, for sure. Next question comes to us from Ray. Ray asks, what are your top 5 worst keywords?
Worst keywords.
So I think the thing we have to outline at the beginning of this is to define what makes a keyword bad.
Yeah.
I do think because there's a few different
ways.
Mark
Rosewater has literally called this the storm scale
that's
before.
One way of looking at it, which is like his...
unlikely to be reprinted,
Yeah, likelihood to be reprinted, and it goes from 0 to storm. So, in other words, storm will probably never be reprinted again.
Should we just start off, storm is on our list?
Storm is on our list.
Sure.
But look, there's a few different factors. One of them is that, like, if they're too powerful, obviously that's going to be a big one, like Storm.
Yeah.
I think if something I would outline as a category is things that are types of keywords that are too easy to make good.
Oh, so it's like there are no hoops to jump through on this.
Yeah, or the hoop is so big that it's like, well, anyone can jump through that. So like, one of mine I'll spoil is Delve, for instance.
Oh, yeah.
So like being able to have 5 cards in your graveyard by just like playing Magic and playing spells.
To get out of Gurmag Angular.
Yeah, that is so easy that I think Delve is a bad mechanic for that reason. And then the other one I want to highlight is actually one that Mark Roswell has talked about before, which is when a mechanic is not very intuitive, when it's hard to understand and get your head around what it actually does.
I've got one of those on my list as well.
I suspect we might have a couple in common. So with that in mind, I've tried to split my 5 across those different things. So whether they're hard to understand, too powerful, or too easy to do to break the
I think
mechanic.
I thought about mine in a very similar fashion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my 5, I have Storm, obviously. Delve, too easy to break that. Cascade, I think same thing. Too easy to make Cascade good.
Yep.
One that is way too hard to understand because I've played with it. Haunt.
It's a stupid mechanic.
Terrible mechanic. Basically, the creature, when it dies, is exiled with a creature that it's haunting.
But it's not exiled underneath it like a tuck effect.
No, because then when that creature dies, the haunt trigger happens, but the haunt creature never comes back. It's always in exile, but it's always attacked. Anyway, it just doesn't make any intuitive sense whatsoever.
I like, because they tried to do, I think it was a Ravnica thing with the Orzhov Guild. They wanted spirits and ghosts to be like more, they wanted them to have like a mechanic.
Yes. I like the idea of a mechanic called Haunt, and I think that there's a world, like they did Disturb. Disturb could have been called Haunt, for instance.
Yep.
That was the creatures
I
that
like
died.
Disturb because it like
Disturb is
disturbing
good
the
too.
grave.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's
get 'em
fine,
back
but
kind
like
of
I
thing.
guess I'm saying I think they wasted this word.
Yeah,
on a
I
bad
get
mechanic.
you.
And then my last one, in terms of being also just impossible to understand. This is actually 3 mechanics that for some reason all have the same fucking name: Descend, Descent, and Fathomless Descent.
Is this from the Ixalan
God,
set?
Lost Caverns of Ixalan. Insane.
Can I just say, I'm so glad. I was in the UK when this set came out, and I missed all of Ixalan. We actually had, funnily enough, with Good Games, we had lined up our first precon stream to be these precons. I'm so glad we missed this, because I think Ixalan was just a set that, for these mechanics specifically.
They got so much right. The precons were really good.
Yeah. Pantlaza was one of the precons.
Yeah, they reprinted a bunch of cards. The flavor was amazing. They had a design team of people from Mesoamerican countries like doing it.
Also Jurassic Park.
Oh, just like all very cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, this for reference, Fathomless Descent cares about how many permanent cards are in your graveyard. Descent cares about how many permanent cards were put into your graveyard this turn, and Descend puts cards in your... I don't even know. I literally don't even know the difference between the 3 of them, but all of them do 3 different things. All of them care about the graveyard and are vaguely similar, but they're not the same. Fathomless Descent, Descent, and Descend. Same set, all different mechanics. Hate it. Hate it with a burning passion.
Yeah. I have a very similar set of rules that are in my list.
Keywords,
for a very similar reason. Look, okay, I'll go from top to bottom for my list. The first one I've got is Ward.
Ooh.
Bit of a hot take here, maybe.
Okay.
But the reason I don't like Ward is mainly because I think it's a way that R&D are pushing the power level of commanders and trying to make them glass cannony enough that can just win the game on the spot, but give them just enough protection to see them through.
They're like so afraid of printing a commander that's just busted.
With hexproof.
Well, I think it's good that that's not happening.
Yeah.
But I think they're also afraid of just having commanders that don't have like ETBs or like don't. So for instance, the one that comes to mind is Vohar.
Yeah.
Is the one that when it attacks...
Ward 3?
Yeah, Ward 3. But like when it attacks, you do a bunch of amazing stuff. You draw a bunch of cards. You deal a bunch of damage. I can't even remember.
No, you draw cards equal to the wolves, and you put counters on equal to the elves.
Yeah, it's absolutely busted. But they were obviously like, oh no, it doesn't have haste, so you have to wait until your next turn. So sometimes,
Ward 3 on it.
Yeah, sometimes someone's gonna drop this card and it'll get removed before their turn. We better give it Ward, and it's like, no, it's okay to have commanders that are just busted.
That means you have to put in your deck building protection.
Yeah.
You have to think about Swiftfoot Boots. You have to think about...
Which is a good thing.
Yeah, and I don't know. I just think Ward is one of those things that R&D have created to push the power level of cards more.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
if it was hexproof, people would be like, "This is busted and terrible, and what are you doing?"
But if it didn't have hexproof, people would be like, "This is not good enough."
Yeah, so they've created a keyword just to be like, "Oh, we want people to keep this creature a bit more often than usual," and it's like, just. It doesn't need it. Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No.
Ward is the first one.
I'm actually when I said Ward, you kind of went, "Ooh," but I'm glad you saw what I was saying with it.
Look, I think the mechanic is good. I think it's good that they've named that mechanic because it used to just have like Calafi God of the Sea.
Before the keyword.
Calafi God of the Sea basically has Ward. It's not a trigger, so it's slightly different, but it's basically there. Yep. So I'm glad it's been keyworded.
Terror of the Peaks was
basically has Ward paid for real life. Yeah. So it exists, but I think they're overprinting it is the problem.
Agree.
They've made it evergreen when it should have been like a once in a blue moon mechanic.
It also really annoys me in CDH.
Understandable.
Just because you have less mana to spend on
and
ward
people
casts.
won't let you walk it back.
Yeah.
So when you like cast a removal spell and someone's like, "Cool, Ward 2," and you're like, "Great,
oh shit,
just counted my own spell."
Yeah. The next one I've got is Dredge for a very similar reason to Storm and that kind of stuff. It's like it's too easy to do incredibly busted things with it.
Yeah, I mean,
Life from the Loam.
Yeah.
What is this card?
I mean, I think, isn't Golgari Grave Troll still banned in Modern? That is pretty silly, given that it's a vanilla creature that enters with a number of counters equal to the number of creature cards in your graveyard. It costs 5 mana.
Dredge 6.
It has Dredge 6. That's literally the only reason it's banned.
Yeah.
It's very silly.
I think and look, for a similar reason... I'll leave this till last, actually.
Okay.
I'll skip.
Sure.
Cascade is my next
same
one.
as mine.
Just because exactly what you outlined.
Yep.
My mechanic that's similar to Haunt for you, Forecast.
Oh, this is that ridiculous thing you have to do in your upkeep.
You have to have... Okay, the way it works is the card is a static and triggered ability in your hand that triggers in your upkeep, and you can only do it in your upkeep. And you pay a alternate cost to reveal it from your hand.
And it does a forecast thing. The spell doesn't come onto the stack.
No.
It doesn't enter the battlefield. Nothing happens with the card. It just has like other text on it.
But it usually does something that like says like forecast, tap a creature. And then the spell says exile tapped creature.
Yes. So there's like an interaction here.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think they fixed this mechanic with Channel.
Yeah, so true.
Channel is
way
basically
better.
the same thing, but it's just discarded from your hand and
do a thing.
Yeah. I think Channel makes a lot more sense and is just like a better way to make that happen.
But also the fact that like when I was playing with it years ago, I forgot that you could only do it in your upkeep. Because
it's just silly.
It's just a lot of reminder text on a card. It's a terribly designed mechanic.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Gavin or whoever designed that. And my one that's similar to Descend, and Fathomless Descent is Toxic, Infect, Poisonous, and Wither.
Oh. Wow, throwing Wither? Okay.
It's neg 1 counters.
Yeah.
It doesn't... But like, this is the thing. Like, all of these things do poison counters.
Yeah.
Neg 1 counters sometimes. So like, I think that... Look, I recognize the reason they wanted to change Infect, and they wanted to revisit, obviously with the Phyrexia thing, they wanted to revisit poison counters.
Yeah.
But they didn't want to reprint Infect because Infect is very strong.
Yeah.
And Pauper, Infect is a super good strategy. Like, you can play Infect at tournaments and it's really good. But I think that they were like, we can't do...
Poisonous. Because Poisonous is a trigger, I think.
And you can respond to it.
You can respond to it. You can do lots of silly stuff with Poisonous that probably shouldn't be possible.
So they made Toxic, which is like... kind of Infect, but
toxic
not.
Creatures don't put -1 counters on things when they deal damage to them.
It's also not a trigger, so it doesn't work the same as Poison.
No.
It's not the same as Infect because it still deals damage as well.
Yes.
It deals damage and
you
the
get
toxic count.
The counters. Wither deals the -1 counters like Infect, but doesn't do any poison things.
Do you see? It's just like the same thing, but slightly different smells.
It's the problem with a game being as old as it is as more and more cards come out, they understand more about how they need to word mechanics.
Yeah.
And they don't really unprint cards. Like, cards get banned in formats, but mostly they don't want to be like, okay, we just released Toxic. All Poisonous cards are banned in all formats.
Terrible.
Like,
People would freak out.
It's not a good way to make game pieces, to be like swapping them with other ones.
So I can see what they have to do. And I'm not saying that R&D are doing a bad job with this. I thought Toxic was actually really intuitive.
I think it's an improvement on Poisonous for sure, and I think it's it's much more balanced than Infect.
Infect, yeah, I agree. Toxic is the fairest and funnest way to play poison counters. Yeah. I think that...
But it's confusing.
And like for new players.
Yeah.
What a horrible thing to have to explain to a new player.
Yeah. No, thank you.
No thanks.
No thanks. We've got a bunch more questions to answer, but I think it might be time for a thrifty interlude.
Ooh, just a thrifty interlude. You know that in like old movies where like the intermission would come up and you get like a little bag of Maltesers, go get a drink and go to the bathroom. This is like that, but the Maltesers are $2 instead of $7.
So it is like an old movie.
It is like an old movie. We're having a break in 1952.
You want some Maltesers? That'll be 50 cents.
And an ice cream cone.
And
Phone in just for free, kid. Here, go buy your mom something nice.
Yeah.
We do need a break.
We're going to hear a little something about a thrifty card, and this week we'll break tradition, and James will join me in performing a dialogue. I know the tradition's not that set, but anyway, whatever.
Coming in.
I'm forcing you into it. You want to read the card we're featuring this week, James?
Sure. I now remember the Thrifty Thursday of this card. I love this one. It's Clarion Spirit. For 1 and a white, you get a creature spirit that is a 2/2. And whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. And I will call the ancestors, and to battle they shall come, and none shall stand in our path.
The ancestors aren't listening.
Shut up, you insufferable horn.
It's true.
The ancestors are not listening because you cannot get halfway through your call without interrupting me with your absurd thoughts of existentialism.
It's just all so morbid. 100,000 dead warriors, whose bodies are probably festering with worms and fungi, by the way, come moseying over because you sing a really loud song at them, and somehow this is both expected and normal? You people are sick, the lot of you, and I won't partake in any rapturous display. Hey! It is not polite to stick your lips all over someone when they're in the middle of talking.
Well, the ancestors have to be called somehow, whether you like it or not. A pox on the fool who cursed me with the burden of your cantankerous presence.
A pox, you bunch of cultish weirdos? The fool who blessed you with my presence is dead. A pox will be the least of his problems. If you're going to swear at him, wish him something mind-rotting or dull to spend his eternity on.
And what would you suggest?
Well, nothing rots my brain more than talking with you. Maybe he can be your horn, and you can blow in his orifices. Get budgeted!
Oh man, this is actually one of my favorite Thrifty Thursdays because
really?
I want everyone to look up the art of Clarion Spirit because in the art it's just a guy holding a horn.
Yep, blowing into it,
calling the spirits.
Yep.
And I love when Walt writes skits of just looking at it. I know that he would have a card and he'd like, I want to do something for this card.
Yep.
Want to make a piece of writing for it. And just looks and went, what if the object and the guy spoke to each other?
What would they say to one another? I had a good time writing it and a lot more fun performing with you.
I have to admit, that was a good one.
If you enjoyed that, text posts are released every Thursday in the Greensboro Commander Community Discord server in the Thrifty Thursdays channel. It's also just a great place to hang out with us and other members of our playgroup. It's linked in the show notes.
Is. It's a great place. There's like daffodils and dandelions and frolicking fae and...
That's a different place.
Oh, it's not the server.
No, that's...
Oh, that's our commune that we're building.
Speaking of the commune...
Let's get back into the people that are coming along to us.
The people of the commune.
The people of the commune.
Which is you.
That's not what we're calling our fans. That we can't call them members of the commune.
When someone subscribes to us on Twitch when we inevitably hit affiliate.
A new member of the commune.
Yeah, the commune grows in numbers. No.
Please, read the next question. Read the next question.
Okay, sorry. Yes, back to it. Ashley asks, where should people go to practice CEDH? I'm going to let you take this one because I play so little CEDH that it's irrelevant.
Everything that Walt's played of CEDH, you've probably seen on stream because that's the only time I think you play it.
I played a bit at CanCon. Admittedly,
True,
there was a lot of CEDH players floating around there. But yes, in general, I'm playing casual.
Yeah. CEDH, that's definitely something I've been playing a lot of. And I was on there last night. if you are just in Australia or even international, we've got international people in there, jump on the Australian CEDH Discord server.
Oh, yeah. We'll link that in the show notes, I reckon.
Yeah. These guys are just the nicest group of people around CEDH. I mean, you will find me in there and talking a lot. I, if anything, sometimes talk in that server more than I do in our own Discord server. But it's just like, it's such a great welcoming environment. I know a lot of people, we talked about this on our What CEDH Is an episode, that a lot of people think CEDH is very sweaty players, very hardcore. These guys are just lovely. They're just really, really great. And joining that will allow you to play Spell Table, which is really, that's where a lot of CEDH
Most
is
CEDH,
played.
I would argue, is played virtually.
Yeah.
Mostly, yep.
Yeah, try Resolve a Praetor's Grasp over that. Have fun. But no, it's genuinely, that would be the place where I'd go to practice, especially if your LGS doesn't have a CEDH community yet. Yep. We just hit a milestone at the Oz CEDH Discord server. We're officially over 500 members.
Wow.
It's a huge server, and it's really exciting. There's
the likelihood that you find a game in a server that big is close to 1.
Yeah.
In terms of going from 0 to 1.
It's really easy. Like last night, it was like, probably 8 o'clock, and I just flicked a message in there and was like, anyone up for a game? Got a pod within 10 minutes.
Yeah, there you go.
And there was 2 pods going as well. There was enough interest that 2 pods started.
Great.
Yeah, obviously great place to practice. Actually playing is in there. But I said this in our Getting Into CDH episode. One of the best things to do is just consume CDH content.
Yeah.
Like, eat that stuff like your life depends on it. Because a lot of CDH is about understanding what your deck does, sure, and how to play it, but it's also about understanding other people's decks.
And the meta at large.
And also just the cards and how the very intricate interactions work with, certain card effects like Soul Bond. Soul Bond always gets questions. Like, you don't see Soul Bond a lot in casual, but there are a couple of really relevant Soul Bond creatures in CEDH that everyone goes, oh, is that an ETB effect? Or does it target the creature? Or?
Yeah, is that going to get turned off by my Torpor Orb?
Exactly. So I just, look, there's tons of YouTube channels out there. I'm obsessed with Play to Win at the moment.
I think it's the most fun way to watch CEDH.
If you're a casual player looking to get into CEDH, those guys are just fun.
In terms of capturing, because we spoke before about how CEDH is not as sweaty as you think it is, this is a really good example of what it actually looks like. I think that the attitude you'll encounter at most of your CEDH pods, especially outside of tournament settings, will be most like Play to Win, where it's like dudes just hanging out, trying to like go off and have cool combos and everything, but mostly they're just playing Commander in exactly the same mentality.
It's a casual Commander game, just at really high power.
It's the same format. There's a reason that it's still EDH.
Has the same ban list. Yep.
And I think I would argue the same attitude as well.
Yep. But I also did want to point specifically to our YouTube channel.
Yes.
Because we have on our YouTube channel the Dockside 3 debacle rounds.
Yeah.
Which is, it's a competition. So this is tournament CEDH. A little bit different to playing it casually. So there's a round timer and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
But if you want some insights about CEDH, Walt and I commentated on that entire tournament, and you can just listen to our commentary on the gameplay, and we'll talk about things like, oh, this is a card that you'll see a lot in CEDH, and this is, because we streamed that on our channel, and we streamed it for our audience of primarily casual players. So we did a lot of explaining. So if you want to practice, check out the Dockside Debacle 3 rounds on our YouTube channel.
Yep, get commanded, check it out. For sure.
Yeah. All right, next question. Oh, another CEDH one.
Yeah.
But this one is for you.
It is.
This one's from Cooley, longtime friend of the podcast and also amazing CEDH player.
There'll be a Dockside Debacle 3 round with Cooley in it.
Correct.
Going up on the channel at some point.
Yeah. The question is, how's Walt finding CEDH at this point? Because Cooley got you into CEDH.
Yeah, so Cooley was the one I was messaging about. I was like, I think I want to play a stacks list. I think it's going to replicate my creature-based
love for casual,
non-combo kind of thing most closely in CEDH. I sent through a bunch of lists and eventually landed on Yashan, thanks to Cooley.
The big pig.
The big pig. We love him. How am I finding CEDH at this moment? Okay, there's a couple of ways you can answer this question. I think my engagements with the meta at the moment has been that it's been really hard to play stacks.
Yeah,
I know
that's
Stax
an accurate representation. Yeah,
Stax is pretty bad in the meta at the moment. There's a lot of decks that are extremely good at playing around Stax. I've had a pretty tough time with Yasharn. Yasharn is my only CEH list, for those who don't know.
Well, you found out on stream that Yuriko just doesn't care about Stax. It just plays around it really well.
Look, I think this has probably been the main thing I've been finding with Yasharn is I've played it enough now where I actually do understand what Stax pieces I have access to. So I'm getting much faster with tutoring, getting much faster with resolving mulligans, and knowing what to mulligan and what not to.
You are mulliganing very well at the moment.
Yeah, but I'm finding it really hard to get to a win. I lock down the pod pretty well. Usually 2 players get almost completely locked out by what I do, and then the 3rd player, who is playing around my stacks pretty well, tends to kill me late in the game when the other 2 players have died. So yeah, that's basically been my experience with CDH. Is like, I'm enjoying improving in skill. I'm enjoying learning my list really well.
It's a flex of the magic muscles, for sure.
And I've always said about CDH, I really enjoy that it tests my really, like, you know, there's kind of like high level magic skills that CDH tests that you can use in casual, but you don't usually.
You don't need to most of the time.
You can prioritize what's fun and funny to you in casual in a way that you don't tend to in CDH. So that's really fun, and I'm enjoying that. But yeah, it's tough never winning.
That's fair.
I literally think I maybe have won once ever in CDH.
Wow.
And I haven't played a lot.
I'm pretty sure I've lost to you once.
Maybe
it's
that's
that
the only one.
Game. Look, I saw this question on our list, and I saw the notes that you put down for it.
Sure.
And as a bit of a surprise, live on air, I'm working on something for you at the moment, actually. It's a new CDH list, and it's based off Strix in the CDH Discord is helping me out on this. It's basically a Yasharn list, but with win conditions. It's a Timna and Kamal list.
Oh.
So using Kamal as a repeatable overrun effect in the command
Timna
zone.
as a card drawer engine.
Yeah.
So playing, what was this, Abzan? Playing Abzan stacks.
So it's basically Yasharn with black.
Yeah, cool.
So look, I'm looking into it, and I've got Strix's list, and I've done a bit of tinkering, but I am looking at it as giving you another option to play to maybe see, because most of the cards will actually be the same. It's running a lot of the same hate bears and a lot of the same stuff, but you now are going to get access to some black tutors, some black rituals, and more card advantage in the command zone.
I'm flattered. I'm flattered that you're looking at it for me.
Yeah, because I saw your notes and I was like, let me have a look to see if I can find something. Because if you're struggling to get a win, Kamal can go do the
Kamal
extra...
just does overrun.
Yeah, more overruns. And you love the overrun thing.
I do love the overrun thing. I mean, I play Kamal in my human typal deck.
Because it gives a spell flashback.
Yeah. It can be relevant. Sometimes I Kamal and give overrun flashback in my graveyard.
That's pretty cool.
Always feels pretty good.
But look, I'm not expecting you to like grab it and run with it because I know CDH isn't your thing. But look, it doesn't take... It's not hard for me to go in and brew something for you. And if you have the list... And if I'm doing a proxy order, I proxy it up for you. If it's there, maybe you play it once and see how you find it.
I'd be happy to give it a go. Sure. Nice.
Maybe next time we play CDH on stream, you'll see Walt with a different thing.
Maybe. Next question comes to us from Jake again. Jake says, what do you think are the most underrated deck themes for Commander?
Underrated themes?
So
okay.
I'm assuming that we're looking at, like, on EDH Rec, you know how you can go by themes.
Yeah, I love that tab.
Yeah. It's got, like, all the typal decks have their own themes.
Yeah.
It's like a dragon theme and an elf theme.
Then there's, like, Spellslinger, Aristocrats.
Yeah, so the sorts of terms that we tend to use to describe our decks. An underrated deck theme.
What do you reckon's underrated?
This is maybe weird because it's tough to know what's underrated because pretty much every archetype, well, most archetypes get played.
Especially nowadays with the amount of new commanders that make archetypes that weren't quite there yet playable.
Yeah,
like, for example,
we have the best Shrines commander ever.
Yeah, and now, like, even in the spoilers for Outlaws at Thunder Junction, Hazazon is now, like, way more playable.
The deserts and graveyards, lands hitting the bin has become way better.
Just because more product gives more tools to more decks, I think more archetypes are getting played now.
The thing I like about how much, this is sort of a tangent now, but the thing I like about how many cards are coming out at the moment from Wizards, and specifically for Commander, is that there are so many commanders to choose from.
Yeah.
I think that it's a better meta when there's more commanders being played.
You're not just always looking at a Traxxer. You're not always looking at a Timna list.
Though I do think that there is also, the other side of that is like the Shrine list thing, where I think that Go Shintai is commanders like Goshintai are actually bad for commander.
It's always the right choice to choose in.
There should be lots of different choices for which commander you should choose for any given archetype. And so
yeah, sure.
I think that they're doing a really good job of that, but I don't think there should ever be the one that is the obvious best one. I think that's bad for the format. If there's just like, okay, I want to play elves, and there's these 5 good ones, but then Marwyn exists. And it's like...
Or Lathriel.
Lathriel probably would be. Lathrel's probably the best elf deck.
Because it just has the most staple 2 win condition of it.
Lathrel's probably a bad example. Lathrel's like just quite good, not like busted level powerful. But yeah, Goshintai, for instance, I think is bad.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, underrated deck themes. So,
what do you reckon's the underrated ones?
I'm actually going to say, and I'm probably biased because I just built one, I'm going to say artifacts.
You reckon artifacts are underrated?
Well, I think specifically because I think people assume that artifacts always has to be played a particular way, but there are so many different ways to play an artifact theme. So I think it's underrated as like a theme to play, not as like
unexplored. There is territory in there that's unexplored.
I'm certainly not saying it's underplayed. I think lots of people have artifact
I was
decks.
about to say, like, I have built like 3 different artifact decks myself, and I at least see on an average commander night at least one in my journeys.
They're
through the
super
game
super common for sure. So I'm not saying like, I guess if someone was like, if it was. We're saying underrated, overrated in terms of how often they're being played. No, absolutely. Artifacts are being played plenty.
Treasures are busted. Have you heard?
I know, right? But like, it does underrated. I feel like people are sleeping on the fact that you can build artifacts in pretty much any color.
Well, dude, your mono white Gandalf
My
list
mono
is
white
great.
Gandalf list is really fun. I've built Selesnya artifacts before. You've had an amazing blue-red Brutaclad artifact-ish kind of deck. It was mostly about tokens. People build treasure decks in different colors.
Black-red treasure decks are really good.
Yeah, you can build...
Prosper Tomebound.
What's the green-red commander that lets you like tap untapped artifacts, non-token artifacts?
Urza, but for green mana. What's that card?
You can only tap non-token artifacts to do it, and they add red mana.
No, green mana, I think. It adds green.
Is it really? Anyway, it's like a 2-mana commander or something.
Yeah.
I just think it's awesome how many different choices there are for artifact commanders, and then different like ways to explore artifacts within them. So like, my Gandalf white artifacts list is about ETBs and LTBs.
My Tornos list is combos.
Yep, there's lists that care about tokens, there's lists that care about treasures, there's lists that care about tapping treasures for mana, like Storm artifact
Galazeth? Is that what you're thinking?
Oh, that too. Yeah,
that's a good one.
There's so much out there. I think it's really cool.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, I see what you're saying though.
Yeah.
My underrated archetype, I'm gonna say clones.
Okay.
Because there is a player at our local game store, shout out Jordan, who listens to our podcast.
So you're going to cough in like a Jordan, I hate you.
Shout out Jordan, who always beats me with this deck.
True, though.
It is true. He's just a really good player. No, he has a really sick Anima list, but it's Anima, but it's a custom version of Anima to make it
made
less
Anima worse.
broken.
Yeah.
Anima's just insane. But the whole list is clones, and I really like it because the cool thing that clones do is it balances itself to the power level of the table most of the time.
Yeah.
So like maybe 70% of the time, it will usually match power. Obviously, you can include really strong cards like, Terror of the Peaks in your deck. And if you have multiple Terror of the Peaks, that's very powerful. But if your deck is just clones and the only thing that you're copying is your opponent's creatures, the peak of your deck is only the peak of whatever cards you're running.
Yeah, like you can be on Terror of the Peaks if one of your opponents is.
Yes, and I
but
really...
If no one in the pod is playing at that power level, then maybe the best thing you copy is like a Rampaging Baloths or something instead.
And then you have to try and figure out how to make
more lands somehow,
It's really cool. I really like clones as an archetype, and also clones have just gotten so much better. We've gotten like Flesh Duplicate recently, which is another 2-mana clone anything.
Yeah, that was from the Doctor Who set. Yeah.
Super strong. And like, I think that clones are just an interesting build around. And there's some really interesting commanders that you can choose. Like obviously Sakashima.
Yeah, it's actually
and then
the
you
obvious
can
choice.
Partner with like Vile Smasher and you can go Grixis Burn.
Yeah.
And, like, or you could do, I don't know, like have a commander that gives a Lord effect. And then clone your Lord effect commander and give all of your commanders Lord effects.
Lord, until you're at like 10 power.
There's like some really interesting things you can do.
There are. I think because the deck literally changes depending entirely on what your opponents are doing.
Yeah.
This is a deck that will be very hard to get sick of.
Play
You know what I
different
mean?
every time.
Yeah. And we've talked before, obviously, especially when we talked about card draw versus tutors, about how fun it is to have decks with high variance. This is a deck where it's all variance.
Yeah, and it's literally whoever you sat down next to. And then like you as a pilot will learn more about other decks and other cards just because you're going to have to go, okay, my Phyrexian Metamorph is your Hazazon.
Yeah.
And now I have to remember what Hazazon does.
I'm going to recommend Infinity Tokens if you're building a clone deck.
Straight up.
Just to remember what all of your 4-mana 2/2 creatures actually are.
Again, not sponsored. We're just really big fans.
Yes, it's true.
But the one gripe I have with clones is that it creates a game where board wipes are just needed a lot.
Yeah.
Because like 2 Terror of the Peaks on one person's board is
You
like,
have to answer
I
that.
have to board wipe.
You can't not answer that.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But like, that's one small price to pay to see a really interesting deck.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. All right, next question. One from Patrick. Good one. Probably one I'm not sure if you can answer well, Walt, because you don't buy packs, but it's what's the most memorable card you have pulled from a booster pack?
So this was actually pretty hard for me because I don't open booster packs very often. But the one place I tend to open packs is when we play Pauper.
Oh, your prize packs.
Yeah, you get a prize pack at the end.
And Walt always gets a lot of prize packs because he does so well all the time.
Lies. I tend to get the one participation prize pack at the end.
Here's your promo Finhorn Elves.
Yes. But one week I got a Jumpstart pack.
Yep.
And I was like, what can I pull from a Jumpstart pack? And I was like, they did print Ristic Studies in here. I'll just really quickly open one. Ha ha ha. Opened the pack. There was a Ristic study in there.
Love that.
It gets even better because I was in the process of cutting a bunch of cards from my decks because I thought that the artists who had done them were really problematic. One of them was Ristic Study.
Cerise Nielsen.
Yep, she sucks. I was in the process of pulling that card out, and then I pulled the Ristic Study from Jumpstart, which is the beautiful...
Oh, it's the new, Strixhaven one, right?
It's Ruther and it's, I'm forgetting her name. Zimone.
Yeah.
Ruther and Zimone from Strixhaven, and Ruther is showing Zimone how to do a sort of fiery spell.
Yeah.
It's very cute art, very cool looking art as well.
I bought the arcane version of Ristic Study, the Unstable Harmonics.
Yeah, it's Jace, not our Jace, different Jace.
Different Jace.
And I forget the
other guy.
Eric, I think. No, maybe Eric?
Yeah, they're
Can't
floating
recall.
in there. It's the scene where they've done the anti-grab thing.
They finally figured out how to make the thing that eventually becomes the warp.
Oh, hang on, I've not gotten that far yet.
Oh,
I've still
sorry.
got a little bit to go.
I don't think I spoiled anything. But yes,
but
it was cool to pull a Ristic Study after joking about it. Everyone was laughing. I was like, hey guys, look what I got in the pack that could have had Ristic Study.
That's a good hit.
Yeah, obviously, money-wise, felt pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
How about you?
Oh my god, so many. I went through a period, obviously in lockdown. I had no money to spend on going to concerts or
tattoos.
Yep. I couldn't spend money on stuff that I want to spend money on.
Yep.
So naturally, I had to spend money on something.
Yep.
I couldn't just save it and be responsible. No, I think that the one that takes the cake is probably my extended art Jeweled Lotus, because that was actually my pack one pick one of my first draft of Commander Legends.
Was it really?
It was, yeah.
So it was a regular draft pack. You just got an extended art Jeweled Lotus.
And it was my pack one pick one, and I literally showed it to the table. I was like, by the way, I'm passing on good legends in this pack because oh my god, look at this.
Jeweled Lotus. I mean, even in draft, that card is insane. That's still the copy in your Niv
It's still
deck,
the one
right?
in my Niv deck.
That's
yeah.
awesome.
It's pretty cool.
Love
Look,
that.
I've got a couple of honorable mentions
Sure.
if you'll let me rattle them off.
No, go for it.
A foil Chrome Mox, which was pretty good.
Sick.
That's also in my Niv Mizzet deck. A Mana Crypt. One that I thought was just the coolest when I cracked it because this was in lockdown and we were really brand new to Commander.
Yep.
My foil box topper expedition at Misty Rainforest from the the Zendikar Rising box.
Yeah, they had the expeditions were part of that. They were were they the booster? What
they
do
were
they
the
call
box
them?
topper. Box topper booster pack.
The little promo pack you get, when
and
you
get
buy a
like
booster
one
box.
expedition and one other card from the set, and they had. This was Wizards had said, "Oh, we're reprinting the fetches," and then they
that's
had.
right. Everyone was so pissed because
it
they
was-
were like, "This is not a reprint."
It's not a reprint. It's like super rare and super exclusive.
Thankfully, they followed it up not long after with Modern Horizons 2, which was a genuine reprint of the fetched lands.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was still pretty cool to see those. The expeditions are beautiful.
And it was like bank at the time.
Oh,
I know I literally just said...
had Modern Horizons 2 getting reprinted, yeah.
I know I just said that I hate MTG Finance, but I made money off this card. I immediately was like, oh my god, this is incredible. And I remember being in the house and we were like, oh, that's the first fetch land we've ever seen in our house.
Oh, none of us owned any at the
none
time.
of us owned any fetch land.
Wow.
So we were like super shocked at it. And I remember just putting it up on like Facebook Marketplace and it went in like seconds.
Oh yeah,
like,
I can believe it.
seconds.
I mean, that was, again, before they got reprinted. So at the time, this was the first quote reprint they'd received since, was it Khans?
Khans of Tarkir.
I think Khans was the last reprint. Yeah. Wow. Next question comes to us from Jared. Jared says, what bad cards do you still love to put in your CEDH decks that you probably shouldn't, and why?
Do you want to go first? I feel like it's pretty easy.
Stacks.
Yeah, the whole category.
Stacks is bad, and my whole deck is stacked.
Yeah, you're playing a lot of cards that don't see a lot of play all in one deck.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the whole answer.
I'll try getting something good for you, buddy. I promise.
Thanks. Yep.
Look, I've talked about this card a million times, but Role Reversal. This card is slept on for real.
This is the sorcery for blue, red.
Yep.
Exchange control of 2 target permanents that share a card type.
Yeah, nailed it. That's it, like word for word.
Oh, there you go.
You nailed it. It's such a good card. The reason it's not good is it's 3 colored pips.
It's also just 3 mana.
3
CDH
mana
is tough for interaction. Yep.
It's sorcery speed, which is really rough.
Yep.
And it also needs the targets to still be viable on resolution, which does make it hard. But it is effectively the poor man's Gilded Drake.
Sure.
If you want a cheap version of Gilded Drake in your deck, you can run this.
Steal your opponent's best creature, in other words. Yeah.
The other really cool thing is you can switch to like commanders on your opponent. So like you could give someone's Winota to someone and like switch a Thrasios and Winota. Neither of those 2 decks can do anything with the other type.
No, and they will not be able to do anything until they remove their commander that they don't control.
Yep.
And then recast it from the command zone. And it's a big time walk effect.
It's a really hard thing, and the politics that it creates, wild.
Yeah.
Like, it's so like, oh, I'll swing at you to get my commander back, but then I'm like, no, I don't want you to give you your commander back.
No.
It's bizarre.
It's fun. I like it a lot.
Another card that I'm testing at the moment, I'm calling it a really bad Timna. It's 1 blue and a red. It's Yusri Fortune's Flame.
Oh, this is the one where you flip 5 coins in your upkeep?
You flip 1 to 5 coins.
So you choose.
No, when it attacks.
Okay, and then you draw a card for each like flip that you win. Is that right?
And then you take 2 damage for each flip you get wrong.
Right.
So you can basically choose. Oh, and there's also the thing at the end, which has happened to me one time. If you get all 5 flips right, you get Omniscience until the end of turn.
Oh my god.
You can cast spells without paying their mana cost.
So for reference, 1 blue red, Yusri Fortune's Flame. It's a 2/3 flyer. Whenever it attacks, choose a number between 1 and 5, flip that many coins. For each flip you win, you draw a card. For each flip you lose, it deals 2 damage to you.
Yep.
And if you won 5 flips this way, you may cast spells from your hand this turn without paying their mana cost.
It's insane.
Hectic.
I am testing it at the moment as another card draw engine in Niv Mizzet. The problem is it's an attack trigger. So it's 3 mana to cast, and then you have to wait.
A full turn cycle.
But it is effectively the same as Timna. Like, it's 3 mana to cast.
Yeah, and then that's true. You can't swing Timna unless you give her haste either.
Yeah, and the other benefit,
I guess with Timna you can cast Timna, swing with something else,
and get a card draw trigger there
that turn.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because in blue red there's Rhystic Study, Mystic Remora. There's already so many great card draw engines, but my Niv deck just wants to play a longer game and wants to draw more and all this kind of stuff. And I'm testing it.
Yeah,
and it's been good recently. Like, just getting like, if you win 2 flips every turn, drawing 2 extra cards. Awesome.
That feels
so
pretty good.
For 3 mana.
And you're doing it every turn.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can
It's
see
not
the
bad.
appeal. I think the
2/3
rate is
flyer.
fine. Yeah.
It's pretty easy to swing around.
Yeah. I think that these effects stapled to bodies are so much stronger in CDH where people just deploy fewer blockers.
Yeah.
It's the impression I've had every time I've played any stacks piece ever in in CDH is it's like, oh wow, I can just like swing my what's the 3 mana stops? Aven Mind Sensor. Aven Mind Sensor like gets through on a player every turn.
It's kind of insane at how easy it is just to put pressure damage, especially in the new mid-range hell world where life totals are actually super relevant.
Yeah, definitely.
Anyway, I've been testing it a little bit. And like the other thing, Niv doesn't use its life total. So it doesn't matter if you take 2 damage.
Yeah,
really.
the only other thing you're really doing is maybe 1 ring.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're not really taking damage.
No.
Like, not intentionally anyway.
So yeah, I've been testing it.
Okay.
I think it's bad. but I'm willing to give it a few more chances. And like, yeah, I got an omniscience one time. So not bad.
The ceiling is there.
It's 3% chance, I think, or something ridiculous. But yeah.
I think winning the 5 flips, like talking about the floor and ceiling of a card, winning 5 flips is like when the elevator in Charlie and the Chocolate Factory bursts through the ceiling.
The glass ceiling is now the sky. All right, next question is from Ben. Ben is asking you specifically, Walt. Can we get shorts for the thrifty interludes on YouTube?
So the very good answer to this question is there are some already.
Yes.
I don't know that we've posted many on YouTube, but I did make a few of these on our TikTok. Yep. They are over there. I love making these. It's just quite a bit of work, and it is on top of, obviously, we stream pretty frequently now. Yep. We make the podcast. I edit the podcast. Like, there's just many responsibilities associated with it. Stay tuned. Definitely keep following the YouTube Get Commanded and the TikTok also at Get Commanded, because I'm hoping later in this year to devote... I'm going to just spoil it. I'm going to aim to do a month later this year where I'm going to try and release a TikTok every day.
Yeah, we had a chat about this, and we're trying to... At the moment, we're trying to write scripts so we can go into the game store and just record for like a whole day a bunch of different skits, a bunch of different things, a bunch of thrifty interludes.
Yep.
It's a goal. It's a lofty goal.
Yes.
But we're going to try. And we know that like these platforms are really important for growth.
Yeah. And like we know that you guys find the skits funny and you find the thrifty interludes funny. And
it's just how much time we have.
Yeah. And look, again, I love to make them, but I need to find a way, I think, of making them where I just need to make the editing timeline. And I mean, the timeline is in like my timeline to edit one of these as short as possible. And honestly, it may end up being that to intentionally limit myself, I edit them on my phone. Like with an extremely rudimentary editing software on my phone.
Raw, uncut, thrifty interludes.
To be fair, when you look at like a really great TikTok, it's not usually the editing that makes you like, that was really funny.
True.
It's the content. It's like what music they've paired it with, like the skit itself. And we know that you guys find those pretty funny. So I definitely am keen to bring those to YouTube and TikTok.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
I'm good. I love them. I'm also a fan of Walt's work.
Next question. Aaron asks, what are your favorite old cards with novel or unique effects that you think are as good as or better than current staples? So we're looking for old cards that are unique or just generally
novel, weird,
interesting, but are as good or better than current staples.
Look, I'm going to go first because I know that you've got a lot to say here.
Sure.
Because I don't play too many old cards. I'm a little bit more of a fan of brewing with the newer stuff.
Yep.
But I was... my Liesa deck had a couple of really weird cards in it that always got people going, what's that card?
Yeah.
Intervention Pact.
Oh, this is the free fog?
Yes.
And then you pay in your upkeep like all the other pacts, right?
But it's also, it's better than a fog because you gain the life you prevent.
Man.
It's really strong. And it's only
cool.
1 white and a white in your upkeep. So it's only 3 mana in your upkeep.
Pretty feasible to pay that.
Yeah.
Especially
really
to be tapped out on someone else's turn. Like, they're not expecting you to have anything.
Great protection spell. The other one that was in that deck that I was like, this is a weird card and really weird to keep track of, Tainted Sigil. I think this one's from...
Oh, you gain life equal to the life lost
by all
turn?
opponents this turn. Yeah. It's like, it's 1 black and a white. You tap and sack it and you gain a bunch of life. I think it's from Future Sight.
It's in that cycle. It's Alara Reborn.
Alara Reborn.
Yeah, it's the Shards block.
Oh, Intervention Pack was Future Sight.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So yeah, 1 black white. It's an artifact. You tap it and sacrifice it. Gain life equal to the total life lost by all players this turn. Yeah, that is hard to keep track of.
It's wild.
This is the kind of card where it'd be fine if you played it and then cracked it on your next turn because you'd know to keep track of it.
Yeah.
This is a terrible card to
play
draw
early and try.
or to draw halfway through your turn and then realize you want to crack it and go like, what was your life total at the start of this turn? To all of your opponents.
I wish I know that some life total apps have like a history in them so you can go back and stuff.
Really?
Yeah, I'm not sure if the ones we
helpful.
use do, but I've seen a few. I know there's like life like a lot of spikes that play tournaments use them.
Right. Interesting.
But yeah, another card that Walt educated me this on stream, and we got to do this in real time with an audience. I recently found out how As Foretold actually works.
So you thought it was like, what's the...
Aether Vial
like
is
Aether
what
Vial.
I thought it was like.
So Aether Vial is the 1 mana artifact where in your upkeep it gets a charge counter, and once per turn you can tap it and drop a creature.
Yeah, creature that's equal to the number of charge counters in mana value.
Yes,
so if it's got 3 charge counters on it, you tap Aether Vial, you can put a 3-drop from your hand onto the battlefield.
Importantly, you can't choose to not put a counter on it in your upkeep, so it always goes up by 1 every turn.
No, I think it says May.
Is that not true?
I think it says May.
Okay, but importantly, you can't ever choose less than the number of charge counters. As Foretold is busted. I'll put that up in a sec. Oh, you may put a charge counter on Aether Vial. Yes, you're totally right. It's a May.
Bring up As Foretold, because I want to read it verbatim, because I misread it so badly. I thought that the effect only worked like once. I knew it worked once per turn, but it only worked as equal to
Aether Vial does.
Aether Vial.
You know, if you've got 3 charge counters, you get a 3-drop. As
so read the card. Read the card.
Is an enchantment for 2 and a blue. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a time counter on it. Once per turn, you may pay 0 rather than pay the mana cost for a spell you cast with mana value X or less, where X is the number of time counters on As Foretold.
X or less. And it says once per turn. Mm-hmm. So if you can do things at instant speed, like if you have a Vidalcan Orrery, you can do a free spell on everyone else's turn.
Also, in your upkeep, it gets the counter, and this is in your 9th Doctor deck. That trigger gets doubled, so you put 2 counters on it per upkeep. So the first turn, after you've played it, you can play 2 drops or less. The next turn, 4 drops or less. 6, 8, like it stacks up so quickly. And yeah, the thing that James realized is like, if you've got 8 counters, you can still just play a 4-drop for free once per turn.
If you've got instant speed stuff, you have it on their turns as well. I, in real time, figured out how that worked.
Busted card.
I might do a TikTok highlight of that moment. Because that was phenomenal.
It's absolutely busted as a Magic card.
Crazy card. All right. I've done mine. You've got how many weeks of Thrifty Thursdays? Go.
Look, I think I will just begin by questioning the wording of this question slightly, because you're looking for old cards. I'm sorry, Aaron, but you're looking for old cards that are novel or unique, but are as good or better than current staples. I said this in the Commander Confessions episode recently, but pretty much anyone who tells you that they have a niche card that is better than a staple is lying to you. The reality is EDH Rec exists. People are extremely aware of what the most powerful cards are in any given circumstance. I'm not saying niche cards are bad. You can find niche, interesting, cool cards. I love to do it. It's literally my favorite thing about building a deck is to do this.
It's the reason why he does it every week.
Yes, but I'm not going to lie to you and be like, this card is better than Sylvan Library, because I don't know that there are cards that are better at doing what Sylvan Library does
than Sylvan Library.
Yeah. Like I know people were talking about like Miri's Guile, for instance, which is a 1 mana enchantment. In your upkeep, you look at the top 3 cards, put them back in any order. That's similar to Sylvan Library.
But it's not putting them in your hand.
It's not putting them in your hand in any circumstance. And also, that card is also $30. So clearly it's not that slept on if people are in that demand over it. Anyway.
Slight hot take, but go off king.
All that aside, I still think that niche cards are very, very good, very, very fun. I just don't think they're as good as staples. So what's the niche cards that I like? I love Instill Energy.
Oh, this is the untap thing, right?
Yep, 1 mana enchantment that untaps a creature every single turn.
In green.
Love also that. Gives it haste only if it attacks. Very, very weird. Eldest Reborn, I think, needs to see more play. This is the one that...
is this the saga?
It's a saga. The first chapter, it edicts each of your opponents. Then each of them discards a card. And then the third chapter is you just get a creature from a graveyard onto your battlefield.
Whoa, that's not bad.
For 5 mana, like, all of those effects cumulatively are extremely undercosted.
Yeah, fair enough.
Fanatical Devotion I did on Thrifty Thursdays recently. This is the sack outlet that regenerates a creature you control. It's free.
Sick card.
In white as well. So if you're in a non-black deck, but you're in white and you want a sack outlet, it's a really good one. Wave of Vitriol, 7 mana sorcery. Everyone sacks all of their artifacts, enchantments, and non-basic lands. You get a number of basics equal to the non-basic lands you sacrifice this way. And also, any card I've done on Thrifty Thursdays.
Ever.
Just
go back into the
whole
backlog.
point. I'm not going to argue they're better than staples, but they're fun and they're interesting, and I think you can play like not staple cards in your deck, and they can still be good and fun and good to use.
Nice one, Aaron. That was a good question. I enjoyed that. All right, next question. Michael, you have tickled our funny bone here.
Yes, you have.
Michael asks, and I'm going to do the voice.
Sure.
What is the airspeed velocity of an unladen swallow?
And 3, 2, 1.
African or European?
It's a Monty Python's Holy Grail reference. And once you get back to us, Michael, with your answer, we'll get back to you on your question.
And if you get thrown into a canyon, we apologize.
Yeah, sorry about that. Not on us.
You know, I actually did a tweet the other day. I got very starstruck. Josh Lee Kwai liked one of my tweets the other day.
Oh, this was the one about Tim,
yeah,
right?
I was watching Monty Python's Holy Grail, and you know Tim, Prodigal Sorcerer,
Yes.
the one that taps to deal damage.
Who was given the nickname Tim because the art on him looks like the character from Monty Python's Holy Grail, who when asked says, "Some call me Tim."
Fun fact about that line, he was meant to have a really long, convoluted name.
And that was the whole joke.
But he forgot what the name was.
And he thought, wouldn't it be even funnier if this like amazing sorcerer who's literally blowing up the tops of mountains next to them,
firing rockets off everywhere.
And they go, "What is your name?" And he goes, "Some call me Tim." Much funnier.
Just brilliant.
Much funnier.
Nah, it is the rabbit.
Yeah.
Brilliant. It's a fantastic film. Go check it out. I highly recommend
But yes, you tweeted about Tim and Josh Lee
Yeah.
Kwai liked it because Josh is a huge Tim.
Because it's one of his favorite cards.
Yeah.
I tweeted at him, and then someone retweeted it with the gif of Captain America going, "I understood that reference."
Nice.
Which is great.
Last question here is another one.
Last one.
We are indeed.
This is a big one, though.
It is a long one. It's from Jake again. Jake says, "How has your content creation journey impacted the way you see and feel about magic as a whole? Did any of your expectations about creating content get challenged? What important lessons have you learned that you'd tell yourself before starting if you had the chance?" That's 3
cheating.
questions, Jake.
Jake, that's 3 questions.
There's a lot to unpack here. I'm going to answer them in reverse. I think.
Go for it. I'll answer them in sequential order.
Okay, good for you. Appreciate you,
You go
being
first.
the logical one on the podcast. The third question, important lessons you've learned. I tell us before starting making content. I'd point to our recent episode, Making Content / Our Story. That's got a lot of those kinds of things in it, I think.
Yep.
Then you asked, did any of your expectations around creating content get challenged? I definitely underestimated how much work goes into making even the smallest pieces of content.
Yeah.
And especially pieces of video content.
And even just like really short form stuff, because Walt and I have such a high level of perfectionism in us.
Yeah.
We don't want to put something out that we're not proud of. So
No.
we want to make it great. And making something great compared to making it kind of mid is a lot of work.
It's a ton of work. And like just video editing is really hard. I have so much love for James, who takes care of pretty much all of the video editing these days.
Which is not a lot.
I
But
I
want
just
to put more up. I'm sorry, guys. I do want to put more on our YouTube
But
channel.
it takes so much
Yeah.
time. Like there's a reason that a lot of the people who get successful in this space, especially video space, come from video editing backgrounds.
Yeah.
And it's because if you're good at it, your videos stand out and you're way faster at making them.
I do have some good news around that. I'm actually currently about to take a intensive course on video editing.
Ooh.
Not to brag, but I won an award it's through my work.
Congratulations.
And I got like $1,000 to spend on professional development. And I've decided, instead of putting it in towards my career, I decided to put it in towards Get Commanded and
Nice.
take a video editing course so our videos can be better and produced quicker, which is exciting.
Can we get some applause from wherever you are for James?
In chat.
In chat. Go to the Twitch chat, even if we're not streaming.
Right now, just jump in
Just
chat.
chuck an applause in there.
Yeah.
And then the first question was, how's your content creation journey impacted the way you see and feel about magic? Making content has made me respect the breadth of magic a lot more.
Oh, yeah,
There is
sure.
just like, there are so many cards, obviously we know that, but there are so many formats, there are so many mentalities that people have when they play Magic. Like for every spike, there is a hyper casual player out there who is like, no, I hate tournaments, I hate draft, I hate standard, I just want to play dumb shit on my kitchen table every day. Like,
and for every 7-point Highlander tournament, there's someone at the back of the room with a Dan deck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think, especially going to CanCon recently, really opened our eyes
Yeah.
to this. Like, seeing a bunch of different formats get played, a bunch of different Magic players just being in the same room.
Yep.
I think that was the thing, is that was like, oh, wow, there's all these people who love this game we play, but have found really cool and interesting little, like, niches of ways that they like to play Magic. You know, whether it's like Commander, but specifically low powered, or whether it's 7-point Highlander or whatever. And yeah, like honestly, making content is especially made me appreciate all the people out there, all of you, honestly, who listen to this podcast and like our little corner. Because we are just seriously
we exist
a little
in
corner.
Such a small space of all of what Magic the Gathering is.
We're just Commander, and even then, we talk about CEDH rarely.
A little.
Yep, we talk about precons rarely, new cards rarely. Like, we mostly talk about how to build fun decks, how to play in a fun way with
how
your
to
play
navigate
group.
the social aspects is something we're really passionate about.
And there's a bunch of you out there who just like that stuff. Like,
and
that's
so cool.
amazing.
We've found our crew. That's so special.
It's really, really cool. So that's been my big thing with making content, is being like, wow, there are so many people who love and play this game, who have so much time for people who also love and play this game, like us, who want to hang out with us and listen to us and help us to make cool stuff.
All right, I'm going to piggyback off that and answer that first question about how I think and feel and about Magic as a whole first. I agree with everything Walt said firstly, but to answer that question, I have realized that Magic is so much more than just a hobby and a game. It's a lifestyle for a lot of people.
Yep.
I remember when Walt and I used to skate together a little bit. We used to go skating, and Walt explained to me one day that, like, when you're a skater, it's so much more than just like an activity. It's like there's a culture around it. There's like clothes that are associated with skating. There's music that's associated with skating.
Yeah.
And that's the same for Magic. It's like, it's, you know, you've got a whole culture and a community of people that exist because of this game, but have so much more importance than just playing it.
Yeah, I mean,
do you know what I mean?
Jonathan Young music, like, plays Magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Post Malone plays Magic. Like, these are people who are engaged in massive artistic spheres and are like brilliant minds and creators who are just like, yeah, I also appreciate the art and story and flavor of this weird card game.
And like Ristic Studies, Sam from Ristic Studies is someone that I look to all the time as like a content creator, and I go, God, and to be honest, if I wasn't making content with you, I would want to do something like Sam.
Yeah.
Just because I think what he talks about with Magic is so much more than just the game. It's about the art, the impact on the people, and the you know, conversations that have been brought up by Tarmogoyf. And you know, like the whole story that he did about Tarmogoyf being pulled in a draft pack in a draft. And he explained how that was like a significant cultural impact. That doesn't happen in Monopoly.
No.
When has Monopoly made a cultural impact on... Do you know what I mean?
We're so happy. We're so lucky to have Sam. Like, as someone who came from obviously doing higher education, going to university, and then also doing honors, like engaging in post-grad.
And in philosophy as well.
Yeah. Like, seriously, we are all so lucky to have Sam. Like, Sam is if you just took a script of one of Sam's videos, like, he's an academic. Like, the quality of that writing is, well, it may be in some ways higher than academia, because he's writing creatively and expansively and poetically.
And he's doing it for, like, he has an idea of what's going to be on the screen.
He's creating, like, beautiful videos with beautiful scripts, and, like, he's narrating them perfectly. He's poetic. He's interesting. Like, we are so lucky to have Sam.
Brings a friggin' tear to your eye, man.
Like, that's how amazing this game is, that it brings people like that in. Yeah,
and
I agree.
I just feel so lucky to be involved in the content creation part of that. Like, my philosophy of color episodes on this podcast, that you can see the inspiration from Sam. I really wanted to make something that was more about the culture of Magic than the game itself. So that's very long-winded answer to your first question about how I feel about Magic on a whole.
Yep.
In terms of to your question, Jake, about my expectations around creating content, yes, they have changed. I set my standards very high. I knew that it was going to be a big challenge, just because it's content creation. For every one person that makes it, there are hundreds that don't.
Yep.
So I knew it was going to be big, but the thing that I think my expectations changed on was working with Walt. I didn't have any expectations around us working together. We've never done anything remotely close to doing something together as a productive thing.
No.
And it could have gone really wrong.
Yeah.
It could have gone terribly.
I mean, you see the stories all the time on the internet, right?
Yeah, friends falling out and never speaking to each other again. And, like, you know, Walt and I have just been hanging out all morning. And, you know, when we took the Thrifty Interlude, you guys don't know this, but we're away for like half an hour before we come back and record again.
Hanging out and chatting.
Yeah, and we just get to talk. And it's so cool that I get to do this with my buddy. And that's, like, the fact that I wasn't expecting for Walt to look out for me as a professional relation, like we're business partners now. Like literally legally on paper, we are business partners. I never expected Walt to look out for me in the way that he looks out for a friend in the same way as a business partner. It's a beautiful relationship we've created, and I did not expect. Having a co-collaborator.
Everything is so much easier. Like we said it in the Making Content and Our Story episode recently, but like, neither of us in isolation, even if we were doing all the same things we're doing for Get Commanded at the moment, in isolation, it would have died over a year ago.
Easily.
Like, comfortably. If not within, like, 3 or 4 episodes of it coming out. But because we, like, have a really great banter, a really great rapport, our skill sets complement each other. We have fun. Like, when we sit down to record, we just have a blast.
We're smiling.
When we loaded up the quick Q&A episode today, we were like, oh my God, we just get to answer questions? How friggin' cool is that?
So cool. And, like, the fact that, and if I can, again, recommend finding someone to collaborate on, because the support that Walt's given me for my freedom to balance my workload, because I work a lot more than Walt does for my job. The support that Walt's given me around that is amazing. And the push for creativity. I always said I'm not a creative person, and now I get to be voice acting effectively on a microphone with you, who's a professional at this. Like, you've practiced and trained. Like, it's really cool. I never thought I'd be able to do that. So don't expect things to go a particular way. Just have an open mind if you're doing it. And lastly, about what important lessons have I learned? Just go check out the episode we just did about checking out. We've learned a lot. I think that, expect things to not go the way you want them to, and just try different things and put something out. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect the first time. I know I just said that we're perfectionists and we try really hard, but that's probably a flaw in us. We probably should just accept the fact that things can be a little bit rough around the edges.
But I think we have as well. Like, we have a very high standard for ourselves, but we're also aware that the content just has to go out there. Like, we've never gone to record an episode and gone like, I know we're supposed to record today, but I guess let's try and write and fix this episode instead. But like, no, stuff that. We want to have weekly Commander content for you, and sometimes the episodes might not be the most amazing you've ever heard ever, but we pride ourselves on the fact that they get out there anyway, and we improve naturally just through the process of continuing to make them for you.
And like, the other thing I'd say as well is, like, do what you can with what you have. So like, if you don't have a lot of time, find what time you do have and give that time to it. Because, like, for example, Walt and I have figured out how to give exactly enough time for one episode to come out on a podcast platform every week. I'm still figuring out how to get YouTube videos out. I'm still figuring that out. That's been like every fortnight, maybe once like.
Sometimes you get in a particular rhythm, they come out every like 4 or 5 days. You've had periods where it's done that, but like, that's hard to sustain, which we've learned. Like,
so I need to find the balance. And that's something that I'd really, really recommend to you, is finding out what you can do with what you have, whether it's financially, time, emotionally. It's a big thing. Jake, awesome last question to end on. Thank you so much for that question.
Appreciate that, Jake. Look, we're having the best time making this podcast for you every week. I know you hear this all the time, but we genuinely couldn't do this without all of you. So please keep in touch, leave comments, send us messages, hop in the Discord, and keep showing up in our Twitch chat. That's been an absolute blast lately.
Really has been. Look, answering these questions has made me realize how much Walt and I still have left to talk about. We were saying the other week that, like, oh my God, we're going to run out of episode ideas. We're not. We still have so much left to talk about. Maybe there's an entire Bonk, Marry, Kill episode. Who knows? We hope you all stick with us, because we have a lot left to say and to ask you. At the end of every episode, we always ask the listeners a question. That's you. Engage with your very own Q&A with us.
So, Space Commanders, command received.
And to the listeners.
Do you feel commanded? What do you think of our answers? And do you have any more questions for us? We're going to try and keep on. This is our 5th Q&A episode now. Or third sort of batch. We've done a couple of double episodes in the past. But keep on sending questions, because we'll keep on banking them up, and we'll keep on releasing these for sure.
And I really want to know. Bonk, Marry, Kill, Emrakul, Kozilek, Ulamog. Tell me that.
How do you feel about Ulamog's chin? Tell us in a bunch of different ways.
At Chad.
At Get Commanded on all of our social platforms. And definitely come check out twitch.tv/Get Get Commanded. We are so close to reaching affiliate on there.
Yeah.
That'll be a huge moment for us.
If you're in our Discord server, you would have seen that we've just released custom emotes in Discord, like reactions. They will be coming to Twitch very, very soon.
Which, of course, will be an offering for people who subscribe. So that'll be another way to support us. And speaking of ways to support us, you can check out our Patreon. We mentioned it before, but it's the best way to support the Get Commanded podcast directly. We'd like to thank our patrons, Stella Tam, Fuzzy, Bottomless Potamus, and Dyer, and an extra special shout out to Fletcher Cutting and Wizard Down Under, who support us in the Space Commander tier. You're the best!
You are the best. And once again, thank you to Palms Off Gaming for sponsoring this podcast. These guys make just really cool gaming accessory stuff, like deck boxes, sleeves, binders, and all that kind of stuff. Even some custom merch that they have, which is really snazzy. You can check them out at palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded to get 10% off your purchase and support the show at the same time. So, palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded for all your gaming accessory needs.
Yeah, and huge thanks to them who supplied so much of the stuff in that giveaway that we just did. Oh my gosh.
Shout out.
4-pocket binder, the blackout sleeves, the Genesis deck box.
Inner sleeves. Yeah.
They supplied a bunch of that stuff. We really appreciate them for that.
And I hit them up on Instagram, was just like, hey, do you mind? And I was expecting him to be like, yeah, we can throw a pack of sleeves in. And then, Jake just got back to me and was like, what about all of this? I'm like, that'll do.
They're really, really lovely guys over there. And we love to support some Australian creators. So please, palmsoffgaming.com.au/#GetCommanded.
All right, well, that's an hour and 40 minutes. Jesus,
long one. Thanks for sticking with us.
Questions.
Yep.
Let's move out of Commander and Magic. Let's go somewhere else. Where have you been this past week?
I would like to take us to the desert world of Arrakis.
Dune.
Yes.
I've not seen all
James
Reddit.
Hasn't seen it.
But everyone's friggin' talking about it, and I need to see it apparently.
Yeah. So you haven't seen part 1 yet.
I haven't seen part 1.
Right, okay.
It's got Timothée Chalamet, Zendaya.
Yeah.
It's a big cast.
Massive cast.
Huge budget
Josh
film.
Brolin.
Oh, wow.
Javier Bardem is one of the main characters. In this film, there was Christopher Walken.
Oh.
There was Florence Pugh.
I was about to do a Christopher Walken impression, but I'm not going to.
It's impossible.
Yeah.
He's an impossible man. It's more over the top than you can possibly imagine. No, it was sick. I literally just saw it yesterday, Dune Part 2. The music, amazing. So for reference, I have not finished it, but I was about 2/3 of the way through the Dune novel when the first one came out.
Is it just one book or is it a series of books?
It's a long series. So I think about 4 or 5 of them were written by Frank Herbert, who's the writer of the original.
Sure.
He passed away. His son continued writing them.
Oh, cool.
Except the fandom considers most of the son's stuff to be non-canon.
Oh, okay.
It's not supposed to be very good.
Sure.
Supposedly. It's not the Christopher Tolkien beautiful legacy. It's, so Dad, you meant this, right? Sorry, Dad, can't hear you. You're dead. I guess this is true now.
I love royalties. Yeah. I love royalties.
So yes, I don't know much beyond the first novel, but I read the first 2/3. It's a very dated novel. It's kind of considered the origin of sci-fi in many ways. Like, it predates a lot of stuff.
The promotional materials that I've seen for Dune remind me a lot of like really early 80s TV about sci-fi
Big
stuff.
time.
Like
it's also
in the
very
desert.
Star Wars. A New Hope, especially Tatooine.
Yeah, the desert
Really?
stuff. I'm thinking also like Star Trek, all the desert planets that they visit. Yeah,
they owe a lot to Frank Herbert for sure. In the same way that, Magic owes so much to to J.R.R. Tolkien.
The daddy.
The daddy. Daddy Tolkien. No, it's really cool. And look, I want to shout out the people who've made the film for taking a book that has in many ways aged really poorly, especially in terms of we know
political,
it now.
social stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's kind of like one of the earliest examples of what they call the white savior trope, right?
Sure.
The like off-world man.
This third world country is in a lot of need.
The only one who can save us is the white man.
Yeah.
It has that in there still.
Timothée Chalamet the white man?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought so. Oh no, a white man.
The thing they did really well, I won't spoil stuff, but basically the 2 parts of Dune are only covering the first novel. There's that much that happens that they literally expanded into 2 parts of film, or mostly. I think there's a couple of things they grabbed from elsewhere, but they took a plot point that involves Timothée Chalamet kind of becoming the chosen one. I won't outline how that is.
Sure.
But they took it and they prolonged it a long time to have him be a relatable human character for a lot longer.
So in other words, instead of just being the chosen white guy, they actually made it reasonable that he became this hero.
They did, and they still he's still a pretty bad guy, and they were pretty good at showing that as well, because that's really important. Is that a lot of people still to this day misinterpret Dune and go like, "Oh, Paul Atreides is the hero," and it's like, no, not really. Everyone's kind of a villain instead. But they did that really well. But they really, really humanized Paul by not having him become the Messiah early enough.
Interesting.
And yeah, I guess I want to give props to a good creator. I think Denis Villeneuve is the director. I think he helped with the screenplay as well.
Sure.
They clearly were like, okay, we want to adapt this story. We have to preserve these elements from it for it to be considered an adaptation of this story. But also, here's all the ways in which it's aged really terribly. How can we rethink these plot points to make it clear that we don't endorse really, really
like
sus
white knighting?
Yeah.
I also think that there's something to say about creators that go, okay, this is like a problematic thing. How do we make it non-problematic, but also make a bit of a comment about why it was problematic in the first place?
Big time. I mean,
I really respect that.
They framed the narrative in a really good way. I won't say what happens, but at the very beginning of Dune Part 2, like it might even be the first shot, there is a thing that happens, and at the very end of the novel, of the film, they have a shot of almost exactly the same thing happening, but different people doing it. And so there's
it's like bookending the story.
Bookending the story is a very, very clear, like,
powerful when you do that.
Is there a difference between the person who did this at the beginning and the person who did this at the end?
I love it. Okay, so like I'm assuming there's a bad act that the bad guys do at the start, and you're like, oh, how dare they?
It's disgusting. It's like legitimately a war crime.
And then the hero at the end does a very similar thing.
The same
thing. The same
exact thing.
And we go, ooh.
How good of a good guy is the good guy really?
Storytelling, man. It's powerful.
They did a really good job.
That's
mad
great.
Props. The music by Hans Zimmer was out of this world.
Was it Hans Zimmer?
Hans Zimmer.
Oh, I'm in. I'm in.
He knows how to do space opera, that's for sure. The performances were great. There was some great humor in there, which is hard to find in Dune. Like, it's a pretty serious story in many ways. Javier Bardem in particular had a few lines where he just got to go in and he was absolutely hysterical. Like, there was an audience of maybe like 20 in the cinema, and I could hear everyone laughing at a couple of Javier Bardem's lines. So
if we weren't streaming tonight, I would have gone to the cinemas. Damn,
it's really good. I recommend checking it out, but definitely watch part 1 first. You will need to.
All right, okay. I mean, it's on Netflix. It's on something.
It'll be on something.
Surely, I'll watch it. I'll watch it.
That's all we have time for. So we'll see you next Friday for another transmission from the Space Commanders.
Goodbye, Commander players.
Bye.